Alright, so in this video we're going to come up with the equation from a graph. For this one I'm not going to specify whether it should be sine or cosine, so we'll go through and do both. To me, I always try and look for the graphs that do not have a phase shift. So if we could start it right here on the y-axis, or where x is equal to 0, we could turn this into a negative cosine graph, because here's my starting point. We are going up, down, back, around. So I'm going to start my first equation as a negative cosine. So we know y equals, it's going to be negative. We have to find the amplitude then. So we know that we are going from -6 to +6. If you take that total distance and cut it in half, that's your amplitude. So the distance between -6 and 6 is 12. 12 divided by 2 gives me an amplitude of 6. We know it's a cosine graph. I then have to find period. So if we start at 0, we're going to complete one period by the time that we get to 8. So that total distance was 8. That tells me 2 pi over b is going to give me my period of 8. Multiply by b, divide by 8, that gives me 2 pi over 8, or pi over 4 as my period. If this is the case, I do not have a phase shift, so I'm going to go ahead and close the parentheses. Because we have our x-axis center on this graph, that tells me there is no vertical shift, so that is my complete equation. If you want to go and make it a sine graph, which some people try and make everything sine because they think it's easier, which in this case it's really not, then we're going to have to do a couple extra steps. The period will never change, so I already have my period. You have to pick a point to which this sine graph has been shifted. So I'm going to pick a starting point right here at 2 so that I can continue this graph in the positive direction all the way until I hit my stopping point. So we know we have a positive sign because of where I started. Now if I had started at 6, we would have a negative sine graph. So it's a positive sign. My amplitude will stay the same. The only thing that's going to change is any phase or vertical shift. So I know it's pi over 4x for the period. We have shifted to the right, so it's going to be a negative. And then negative c over b gives you your phase shift. Well, we know b is pi over 4. That's my period. And then that's going to be equal to the phase shift of 2. I'm going to multiply by pi over 4, so negative c is 2 pi over 4. That tells me positive c is negative pi over 2, which I've already got the negative in there for the direction. There has been no vertical shift because it's still on the x-axis, and this would be your complete sine graph. I'm going to go ahead and give you one to try on your own. Here's your graph. Come up with the equation and bring that in tomorrow.